Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well and that you've had a good start to the week. Uh, the whole point of this one is quickly to cover corporate governance. And corporate governance, I'm going to break it down into two parts. So it is firstly about the triple bottom line, and then also I'm going to integrate King Code with it. Okay, it is one of the more theoretical things, as it were, but it's also one of them that you would see the most practical application when you know what to look for. Okay. It's not really as theoretical as it sounds, but it is somewhat theoretical, so I'm going to help you to break it down. So, obviously, when it comes to corporate governance, it is rules, practice, processes. It is ethical guidelines that are put into place to help govern businesses and how they interact with all stakeholders, whether it be your community, your government, your consumers, your suppliers, your competitors. It's a set of guidelines, it's a set of rules. As much as CSR is, it's the same principle that applies here. Well, if I ask you for some of the principles, and these are also known as some of the responsibilities of directors, take accountability, to say I was wrong and to answer to your actions, whether good or bad, to take accountability both ways. Okay. Transparency is being clear, being accurate, being timely, being open. And when it comes to responsibility and integrity, is upholding all ethical standards that you need to know. And obviously, ethical standards fall across the whole line. They don't have a specific one. When we look at ethics, ethics is always subjective because what's ethical to one culture is not ethical to another, and vice versa. Business, for some businesses, profit is the higher end, and for others, people and planet take priority. Okay. Along with that, we have responsibility, fairness, and independence. Okay, these ones make relatively certain or sense in their own right. The one that you need to know is fiduciary duty, meaning that they have to act with care and that they have to act in the best interest of business. Yeah, the board of directors specifically has to act in the best interest of its business, otherwise it runs the risk of um, falling behind. It runs the risk of um, the directors run the risk of being held accountable for the actions that they take. That's where conflicts of interest arise. Is you can't say that, oh no, but I own shares in Pick and Pay, but I want to be the CSO of Spar. To run Pick and Pay, you've got to have no outside interest, and you've only got to do what's best for the business. Yeah, you've got to take that. You've got to create value in the long run, and you've got to do risk management. Okay. You never say you avoid risk. Avoiding risk is almost impossible, but you can say we can mitigate it, we can reduce it, we can take it away from us. Okay. So, how do we do that? The one that is most, or the one framework that is most often used is triple bottom line. Okay, and these are economic, social, environmental. You might know them as profit, people, and planet. Okay. When it comes to economic, we also know economic is profit. It's all about profitability. Hey, there you look at why do we generate profits? What is our revenue growth? What's our profit margin? What return on investment do we have? You can look at things like your asset test ratio. You can look at your gearing ratio. You can look at your profitability ratio. And they need to make sure that they are. Why is it part of sustainability? Is because if you don't make a profit, you're not going to survive in the long run. One thing that people say is, yes, you look after the world, but look after your own first. Make sure that you are making money first. If you don't make money, you're not going to succeed as a business. So that is why they sometimes, or why profit is still considered one of the others. Then they look at people and they say, look, we've got to work at working conditions, we've got to look at labor practices, and we've got to look at the engagement within our clothing sector, within our community. They look at the positive PR that we are building for it and the productivity that comes with happy employees. Yeah, you look at satisfaction, you look at the inclusion rate, which is part of BEE, employment equity. You look at your community engagement. How often do people engage? How many people or how many of your suppliers and people are from within your community? Do people drive out of their way to come to you? Are you catering to the ones that are closest to you? That's why they ask you for, when you fill in your details, why they want to know where you live when they look at your loyalty card. They want to know, are you a loyal member? Are you someone close by? Do you go out of your way? And if you are not tapping into your local community, you're doing something wrong. Environmental is obviously sustainable sourcing. Minimize environmental footprint, carbon footprint, your water usage, your waste generation, your electricity bill, your carbon footprint, all of it. Okay, you need to make sure that you remain environmentally friendly. If you're not environmentally friendly, again, a lot of people nowadays prioritize that even over cheapness. So a lot of people are like, I won't support them because they cut down trees in Amazon, whatever. Some people really do go that way. But the triple bottom line is not enforced. bottom line is encouraged, but it's not enforced. What that is enforced to a certain degree is the King Code. That's one I think his name was Mervyn King. It released in 4. You'll see that there are 4 King Codes. They are not different codes. They are different iterations of the same code. It started with King 1, and then to King 2, and then King 3. You'll obviously see year by year how they change. The whole thing about it was that they want to make sure that you have good performance, you have effective control, you are a legitimate business, and you are showing your legitimacy, and that you are building ethical culture. These are the 4 things that King Code really wants to prioritize. How do they do it? They do it through ethics, corporate citizenship, being a leader in your community. They're doing that. There's that ethical culture again, the code of conduct. Your responsible leadership, your ethical leadership. They look at and then when they look at your good performance, they look at things like, are you actually reporting monthly? What is your execution like? Do you have that integrated reporting, which is a massive part of King Code? In the old days, you could just publish your financial statements, and that was enough. Nowadays, if you look at an integrated report, it has your community engagement, it has your environmentally friendliness program. All of it is part of your reports. Obviously, you always want to do risk governance. You want to reduce risk as much as possible. You want to look at IT governance, especially. We look at cybersecurity, for example, how big of an industry it's become. And all of it is in the way of trying to reduce risks and to make sure that there are proper governance structure or governance structures in place. As King Code is all about board of directors. How many board of directors do you have? Who do they who are they accountable to? Okay, how effective are they? What are their responsibilities? And that's what King 1 started. King 1 really started with the role of the board of directors and to make sure that they were held accountable and that they were as transparent as possible. Okay, it really made sure that corporate governance was set in depth and that it looked at things like how often did we meet? What was our reporting like? What did we have to do for auditing? What was our affirmative action? What was our code of ethics like? So they made sure what was the role of the directors? What was their responsibilities? And it really was a foundational report. When King 2 came in, they said, okay, now we've got to bring in leadership and we've got to start bringing this integrated reporting in. That's because of the stakeholder inclusivity. We couldn't now just look at our internal, we had to look external. We had to look at something like what were our audits like. Okay, and you can see the first 3 remained the same. Where we started doing integrated reporting was when King 2 came along. So that we knew how integrated reporting was. That we didn't just say what was the impact on our own business, but on the outside of our business as well. King 3, literally, as I said, that's why I say you'll see these things are very similar because they just built on one another. Okay, King 3 really brought in that sustainability aspect. Okay, it really influenced on the risk management and the sustainability. It said that you have to identify risk in order to survive as a business. If you didn't survive, you had to look at dispute resolution. So, for example, the TCMA would have been part of this. Okay, the risk-based internal audit, the shareholder approval. Okay, they need to look at IT governance. Again, like I said, cybersecurity is one of the biggest parts of corporate governance. Okay, fundamentals in looking at the transactions that the business could take, doing mergers, acquisitions, and amalgamations. So remember, a merger is 2 companies coming together to create a whole new company. An acquisition is when one business buys out another. Okay. So they brought in this thing of a fire explainer. They needed to show how they took all of the principles, the thing of good culture, integrated reporting, governance, risk governance, at performance, and they had to show either explain why it took place and didn't take place, or they had to show where they applied these principles. So King 3 was known as apply or explain, King 4 was known as apply and explain. So you had to apply everything and explain why you couldn't do it at some point. King 4 was the latest one that we have as of now. Okay. And it really looks at the 4 things that we talked about in the front. They're looking at culture, they're looking at stakeholder relationships and inclusivity, and they're looking at risk governance as a real big part of it. Okay. How do they check this? The one thing is the JSE Responsibility Index, or the FCSE. Okay. They make sure that we are economic, environmentally, social, and governance practices. Okay, you are given a score on this JSE index. Obviously, the higher your score is, the more people who are and socially conscious. A lot of investors are like, okay, we want to invest our money, but we want to invest in a company that we know has a good PR blast. So they want to make sure that they do it in these types. So they look at criteria that are used on environmental impact, social responsibility, and how well you adhere to all these corporate governance concepts. They look at things like community engagement. They look at your transparent structures. How easy is it to look at the structures? Are you open in all your integrated reporting? How transparent are you? Okay, so they look at your social, and that's why I say, okay, they look at for investors interested in socially responsible investing. Okay, you are a socially responsible investor, you are more likely to take a company higher up on the index than lower. That makes sense for that one. Then you obviously have the Global Reporting Index, which is another one. It's just a more global one. Okay, and they also look. It's another one. So whenever it comes to these things, they look at your environmental sustainability. All that they do is they want that consistent, that reporting remains consistent across all things. Okay? And they give us a common language of reporting structures. If you go through most structures nowadays, they all focus, and that's where you have GARP as well, and IFRS and all that. They all have a certain structure that needs to be followed. You don't have to know it because it's really in depth and everything, but it's how they can actually understand the expectations and how they can actually see the impact that you have. Obviously, materiality is one of the things, is that you are most significant. You have to show the things that are significant to your business and prioritize these efforts. You gotta find what's the biggest issue that's facing you as a business. You can't just say like, oh, we're worried about the Sahara Desert and you live in New York or whatever. It's not really relevant to you. You've got to be materialistic. You've got to make sure that you take transparency and accountability, which we've spoken about already. And you've got to show that you are doing continuous improvement. Okay. You've got to make sure that there are continuous improvements from both sides, from not only that you are not only saying, okay, this is where we are in 2020, and 5 years down the line we're still there. You've got to show continuous